This is the second cylinder head. I said I would do some video of how I was cleaning it. First thing, I've got some silicone on here. I don't like exhaust leaks, so I put a little silicone on the gaskets. Cleaning that off, I've got one of these wire brushes. Well, it's plastic bristles, but it's got some grit embedded just a little bit, and you can use it on these without damaging the aluminum. So, cleaning the silicone off first. Now all of this is just oil residue, some degreaser, and a little pressure washer. We'll clean that up. See how this does on the combustion chamber. We'll go to an actual wire brush in here. Don't use it where it you want to use a real light touch because it is a wire brush on aluminum, and don't use it where the gasket seals. I'm just cleaning up a little bit of the combustion chamber. Okay, that basically just knocked off the big chunks. This right in here is all gooey around by the intake valves. So I'm going to use a little bit of diesel. And a toothbrush. Try to loosen some of that up. Because since it is gooey, I try to use a little soda blasting. It doesn't come off as well because it's, like I said, it's gooey. It's kind of like tar. And that little bit took off quite a bit. One other little thing I wish I'd have done to the other head, but I wasn't paying attention. See these casting lines by the spark plugs? They are super rough. And they're real easy to buzz off with a flap wheel. You can smooth all that out and just... That's totally optional. They're not going to crack there, but it is some place you could end up cutting yourself if you're reaching around working in there. So I'm smoothing those out. I'll probably take a flap wheel and work these edges here because that's sharp too, just from the casting process. Now so far I've just shot it with a little bit of degreaser and the pressure washer, and that of course did nothing for that stuff. But what I used on this last, on the, the head before this, that I haven't used on any before, is the attachment. I don't know if you've seen them that go on your pressure washer that shoots abrasive. And that actually worked pretty good. You don't have all the dust and it washes it right away. But I've got some stuff in a can that I got at Northern Hydraulic called Shark Bite. I think it was Shark Bite, but it's a glass bead media. You see some there on the ground. But I'm going to spray that. That takes a lot of that off. You don't want to stay blasting on the sealing surface for very long because it does rough it up just slightly. But that's easy to smooth out later. But I usually just concentrate it on just the combustion chamber and the ports where they get all nasty. Because the intake ports, I know it's dark, I'm losing my light, but they are just black inside there. And part of that is because the casting is so rough. And that's, once I get most of this off, that's the next thing I'll do is be cleaning up the casting. And there's the Shark Bite stuff. About the consistency of sand, and I'm sure you could use sand. And there's the wand assembly. Just hooks on the end of the pressure washer wand. That goes in the abrasive, and then you go to spray it. Okay, after that spraying, because those things were just black and gooey down in those intake runners, there's still some stuff that I just can't get a direct hit with the spray down in like around where the valve comes through. So I'll use some diesel and a brush and clean that out. And also, see how rough that wall is? Some of that'll come off when I am doing a little sanding and grinding, getting that cleaned up. I don't know if the camera will pick it up, but those glass beads give it just a little bit of texture. It's not much. And I know some of you are going to cringe, but what I did on the other head and what I have done in the past on heads is I used the DA with like 600 grit and just lightly gave it a pass over it. And it will smooth it right back up like it should be. And you know, as long as you're not grinding in one place, you're not going to wear a spot. And I always use a flat edge like you would check for flatness on the cylinder head anyway. And I've smoothed them out, but never taken enough off to get one out of spec. In fact, I've checked them before and after, and I've never noticed that I've taken off enough to even affect the flatness of it. But it just does make it smoother. And we'll go in and do a little work around the valves, because there's a pretty good hump right there on the exhaust, and there is also a pretty good lip right here that's kind of rough, and a rough lip right there. And we'll just smooth some of that out, just minutely. I'm not taking a bunch of metal off anything, just trying to make it flow a little better. That'll be the next step. Right now I got to put up my tools because it's getting dark. All right, looking at the head right now, we've really got a lot of the stuff cleaned out of it with the pressure washer with the abrasive. But we still have a lot of this stuff in there, and it is just like tar. And that keeps the abrasive media from cleaning it out real well. And we got it on the sides in here and a little bit here. It's got to be fuel residue of some kind, but it's nasty. It always gets in there. Did it on this car, did it on my twin turbo Nissan. Just always nasty goop in the heads and the intake. And I'm not running a conventional PCV system, so it is not oil residue. It's got to be the fuel. So right now we're going to start, I'm going to do a little more scraping down in there, get as much of this out as possible so it doesn't foul up my sandpaper. All right, I went ahead and used some of the sandpaper stuff I've got and some degreaser. Got some more of that. It seemed to be taking it off the walls pretty good. So now I'm going to take this back out, pressure wash it again. But what I was using is you can buy, when you're porting a head, you can buy what they call they're little rolls of sandpaper built on, what the crap are they called? I can't remember right off the head what they're called, but this is homemade. Let me take that nasty piece of sandpaper off and I'll show you. This is just a piece of aluminum rod that I turned down to fit in the chuck on the die grinder. And I put a little slot there on the end. And I've been using pieces of sanding belt. Seems to work the best. Regular sandpaper doesn't hold up, and emery cloth, I didn't have any rolls of emery cloth, so I've just been cutting up some sanding belts and sticking them in there. So it starts out like that, roll it around there, and then you stick it in the hole and start spinning it, and you can grind the side walls down, smooth everything out really nice with that, and when it gets worn, just stick another one on there and go. Right now, we'll take that out and give it another quick bath, see what it looks like. All right, that took another little layer of stuff off these. Right now, I'm just going to start working on smoothing the walls out. That is just totally rough in there. And I'm sure that's why a lot of that stuff sticks to it. So we're just going to take the flap, run it up and down the sides and the corners, and just smooth everything out. Not really trying to enlarge it or anything like that, just make it smoother. what we've got. A little bit of work with that flap. It takes it from looking like that to much more smooth like that. So I'll just keep working all the ports, intake and exhaust, work them around from different angles, get all the nooks and crannies, get them smooth like this. And then we'll move on to, well, I'm sure I'll have to pressure wash it a couple more times. Once we get all the ports done like I wanted, everything about as clean as we're going to get it, we'll do some valve lapping. All right, I just gave the head another pressure washing, and that's pretty much as good as I'm going to get it. I mean, it's clean. It's smoothed out pretty good. I don't see any reason to spend any more time on that part. So right now it's just a matter of cleaning all the valves up. There's nothing real scientific about that. We just take them over the way I clean them. Just the wire wheel on the bench grinder and just work them over till everything's off. The exhaust can sometimes be a little bit difficult because the stuff is burned on there a little harder. The intakes usually have more debris, but it comes off a little easier. So we'll get these all cleaned up. I'd run out of valve grinding compound on the last head, so I had to go get a new tube of it. Then we'll grind the valves, give it one final bath, and should be able to assemble it. After some wire wheeling, all the valves are cleaned up, so now we're going to lap them to the seats. We're just trying to clean up that edge where it mates with the cylinder head there. So what you need, a valve grinding stick. Got a suction cup on each end. Take it and suction cup it to the head of the valve. Now I put a little oil on the stem so it won't be scuffing up the valve guide as we do this. Take your grinding compound. Put a coat of it around the seat there, where they join up. Put it in the head. You hear it grinding? Work it back and forth, lift it up every once in a while because that'll pull some of the grit back into the joint. Now, wipe it off. And we'll see what it looks like. And there's the end result. The area where they make contact is now cleaned up and should seal nicely. You saw the other head. If you watched the last video, you saw how the other head was holding solvent no problem. And this is what I did to it. It also shines up that surface on the valve seat. So now we just repeat that until we've got them all lapped. There's the band on an intake valve cleaned up. The thing you got to watch out for is try to keep oil and grinding compound off the top of your valve, because it'll make it hard for the suction cup to stick. And keep the grinding compound off the stem, because you don't want to be grinding your valve guide. Just the valve seat. So I'll work through the rest of these. Then we will, I'll wipe all the valves down with solvent. We'll take the head back outside, blast it completely off. This valve grinding compound is water-based. Just throw some cleaner on there, blast it out, and it'll be good to go. Oh, one thing before we do the final cleaning is we'll go back and smooth out this surface here on the head where it's just slightly roughed up from the glass beads. We'll also do that. Okay, before we take this out and give it its final bath, we're going to fix the surface roughness on this. The head gasket calls for 60 RA, your roughness average, so at 60 or smoother. And an RA compared to sanding grit, 60 would be like a 120 grit, somewhere close to that. And I'm going to take the DA And it said 60 or better. So this is a 400 grit disc on here. And we're just going to set that on there and just lightly run it over there. And we're not trying to remove any material. We're just polishing this out a little bit. Now I put a new 400 grit disc on there. Coat this with a little bit of WD-40 just for lubricant. Now we're going to work this over the top of it. Just basically just the weight of the DA. Just letting it glide along. You're not wanting to remove metal. Just smooth it out. Now, I don't know if you can tell in the video, but that is now nice and smooth. Definitely better than the 60 RA required. And I'm going to show you. I measured it before for flatness, before I did this, and I'm going to measure it again after. I'm going to show you how to check for flatness. You take a straight edge, which I've checked this straight edge on the bed of my lathe to make sure it is flat. You lay it across areas and then you slide a feeler gauge like in the gap here. And you check it different directions. Okay, as far as what is allowable, according to the factory service manual, in any 6-inch area, you're allowed up to 3 thousandths of variation. So I should be able to set that on there. If I can't fit a 3 thousandths feeler gauge under it, it's good. Now, on the full length of it, it lets you, if the straight edge was here and here, you measure in the middle, you're allowed up to 8 thousandths of a gap. So let's see what we got. So I'm not even messing with the 8. This is a 3 thousandths. We'll set it right across here, straight up and down. Three won't fit anywhere. Same there. Same there. Same on the back edge. Crossways. And also checking front to back, or top to bottom, however you want to look at it, like this. And there is no movement at all from side to side. So you may think sanding it with the DA is a little crude, but there's nothing magical about putting this in a machine and running a cutter across it to get it level. Flat is flat. And it is, as you just saw, it's flat, it's smooth, it's ready to have a new head gasket. Check the block the same way, it's all good. I didn't rough it up at all when I was cleaning it, so it didn't need any sanding, just normal cleaning. But she's ready to go back together. Now, I'll give it its final bath. We'll put the valves back in. Okay, and it had its final bath. It's all ready to go back together. The last video I posted has all the assembly and putting it on the vehicle, so I'm not going to go through all that again. The one thing I am going to do is use a different valve compressor, and I'll show you that. On the other head, I use this little lever type from Lingenfelter. It works good on the car, but on the workbench, it's not the greatest. So this is a seat clamp type compressor that I built years ago to use on some of my import cars. So we're going to use that on this. I'll show you how that works, and then we'll end the video. Okay, the bottom end setting on the valve. Take the spring, set it in there. Carefully run that down far enough that we can drop a keeper in each side. Knock that into place. And just run it up. And there you go. Slide it over to the intake. Make sure the other end's flat on the valve. Now a little further. Center of the valve. This was a little easier to use on the Nissan with the overhead valves or the overhead cam, because this piece was down in the head where it couldn't move anywhere. Put that down. Now I think I'll stick with using this tool for benchtop work on the cylinder head. Work on down, get them all installed, and it's ready to go back on the engine. So that's how I went about cleaning them up. That's how I always do it. You could take it to a shop, have them soak it, put it in a hot seat, whatever, clean it up that way. Will be easier, but I'm a do-it-yourselfer, so I did it myself. So get that back on, then we're going to be ready to haul the engine over next door. We get the wiring wrapped up. We can start putting the thing back together, getting closer. All right, till the next video. Thank you for watching.